I finally finished the PowerPoint. That means it's okay for me to go to sleep. Oh no, it's you again. Oh, you want me to do this right now, huh? Oh. Alright, you win. Alright, okay, alright. Alright, man, shut the... Gentlemen, we have a UFC China event happening this Friday night slash Saturday morning. We're going to be simulating the experience of the UK fans, my boys across the pond. I'm going to be staying up at midnight. You guys probably wake up even earlier past midnight in order to make these cards that are happening in America most of the time. So I'm going to feel your pain this weekend. We have Johnny Walker versus Mingyang. It's a UFC fight night that's going to be happening in Shanghai. We're about to get Shanghaied. This event is going to be happening in the Shanghai Indoor Stadium in Shanghai, Hebei, China. Let's get a quick for Ming Shi, who's going to be fighting on the Road to UFC card that's going to be happening in less than a day from now as the time I'm recording this, especially by the time that it's uploading. I'm going to become nocturnal for the next 2 days because I'm going to make a video recap of the Road to UFC card as well. That's going to happen less than 24 hours from now. Look here, let's get right into the card. I have no time to waste is what this means. Look at how beautiful this arena is. It's actually really nice looking. The Shanghai Indoor Stadium is actually a quaint arena. I like the way that it looks from the outside. They have the beautiful light fixtures at night. This is good vibes. I like this place. I would totally be okay with getting knocked out so badly that I require an airlift in a location such as this one. The first fight on this card is going to be Uran Satybaldiev, Uran Salty Balls versus Diyar Nurgozhay. This will be happening at light heavyweight. This is Kyrgyzstan versus Kazakhstan. Uran Salty Balls, Uran Satybaldiev, excuse me. This is the last time I'll call him this. It's just a force of habit. You have to excuse me. He got whooped up by Martin Buday at a heavyweight. Uran Satybaldiev, oh my god. Satybaldiev, he fought with Martin Buday up a weight class. He had no business fighting at 265 pounds. He weighed 200 and nothing pounds on the scales, and then he got mogged by Martin Buday. But he was down a scrap with this guy, even though he had no stopping power at up a weight class. He had some pretty solid lands on Martin Buday as well, which were eliciting some pretty solid reactions out of him, especially in like the third round of this fight as well, but nothing that was going to actually change the course of the fight. Whenever Martin Buday got in any trouble, he just stayed on his jab and on his leg kick, and then entered the clinch as well, where he dominated this light heavyweight. In open range, Martin Buday was using this jab and this leg kick, the blob power behind it, to keep Satybaldiev at range. But even though he did lose this fight, I'm going to give some credit and props to my boy Uran for actually stepping up to the plate and not leaving a bad account for himself in there in the octagon. Nurgozhay, on the other hand, he got no-diffed by Brinson Ribeiro, and he was able to abuse his range. Brinson Ribeiro staying on the outside. He landed some low kicks. He used his jab to set up a right hand, and it dropped Diyar in the middle of the fight. I think it was that Diyar, he got like scared after he was dropped. In the first round, they made it into the second, and then he shoots a takedown on Brinson Ribeiro. Brinson Ribeiro reverses the position and ends up choking Nurgozhay. I'll let you know right off the rip that I'm going to be favoring Uran to win this fight, because Nurgozhay, he makes really pedestrian attempts to get on the inside, and he has T-Rex arms as well. He's 6'2" with the 74-inch reach, and that means that his reach is exactly as tall as he is. Diyar, he opts to use a kick-heavy offense early on, but he can easily be beaten at his own game since he stays on the outside. He's going to hang out in the kicking range. If you are a longer fighter, you could just blast him with kicks. The low kick was working super well for Brinson Ribeiro. It will work super well for Satybaldiev in this fight. Uran, he was controlling the range early on. He was fighting super well against Martin Buday, and he would have finished him. Granted, he possessed just more power in his hands, or if he was a true heavyweight in this fight. Nurgozhay is something I noticed as I was watching his footage, that he has this tick where he's always touching his eye. He's like... Satybaldiev, he's a workhorse. Nurgozhay does a lot of standing around in his fights. He knocked this guy out on the Contender Series with a high kick, but it came in the middle of the second round of their fight after he'd just done a whole lot of nothing up until then. I mean, he threw some leg kicks, I guess, and a few right hands, but nothing of substance, at least. Nurgozhay, he's going to need to land like a Hail Mary head kick in the first 30 seconds of this fight as he's getting his kicks going, or else he's going to get dominated by the pacing of Uran until he breaks, which is something that I do favor. That's the outcome that I'm going with. I'm going to go for a round 1 TKO on Satybaldiev. Bro, I'm telling you, calling this man Uran Salty Balls is like... It's looking at me over there like the Green Goblin mask. I must stay professional. The next fight is Xiao, which I would... If you Google Xiao and the Google search bar and you go to images, whenever I was getting his PNG, this dude's named after like dumplings, like bao dumplings. Xiao Bao. I'm not sure what is inside of them, but it's food. He's going to be fighting with ZHŌNGGUÓ. This guy calls himself Jiu-Jitsu, and he's a sick and wicked grappler. I was watching his fights on the road to UFC. I love these road to UFC boys so much. I'm grateful for the fact that we get to watch a road to UFC event tomorrow because all of their fights, Michael Bisping said this in the Xiao fight that I watched against Chang Ho Lee. These road to UFC fighters, they look like two frogs in a blender. That's the joke that he made on the mic. It's gonna look like two frogs in a blender. Xiao versus ZHŌNGGUÓ. I love Korean grapplers so much. I had to pull out the Korea shirt for this monumentous occasion. I have both North and South Korea on my tee right now. This might actually be sacrilege. Granted, I love America so much, but when in Rome, you know? The thing that I really like about ZHŌNGGUÓ, and the reason why I'm going to favor him to win this fight out of the gate, I'm just going to let you know that I really like this guy and the way that he fights, bro. He's a Korean grappler for one, and he's down to pocket exchange like an absolute psycho. He'll really stand in the phone booth and he'll just get down with whoever. He has to start a GoFundMe account in Korea to make sure that he can make the Vegas trip to fight in the semifinals of the road to UFC. And he won via dominant decision in that fight as well. ZHŌNGGUÓ, he's one of the youngest jiu-jitsu black belts in South Korea, and he looks like he's swimming whenever he grapples. It's honestly really beautiful stuff. Xiao has been beaten by Chang Ho Lee. This is the Korean Khabib. And he kind of reminds me of like a Korean Pantoja, even though that doesn't really roll off the tongue that well. He does a good job of reversing positions on the ground like Pantoja, and he does a really good job of taking the back and getting the body triangles, and he can even backpack people as well. He's a very good grappler. I like ZHŌNGGUÓ. He deserves his black belt. The thing about Xiao though is that he's scrappy, but he can't really pace himself, and he'll burn out implementing his game plan, which mostly is just to stand in a clinch and to push people up against the cage, which is kind of boring. The way that Chang Ho Lee won this fight against Xiao is he noticed that he wasn't in any immediate danger in this clinch, so he just started ripping knees wherever he could land them. He started planting them like in his liver because it was a switch stance fight. Chang Ho Lee is a southpaw, Xiao is an orthodox fighter, so he was able to find that left knee right to the liver, and he won the second and third round this way, and he was actually breaking Xiao down in the clinch. You have to have Muay Thai in order to beat this guy because he's going to wear on you and get you tired, and then he'll strike in open range like he did against Kwang Lee. He was able to knock that guy out just by making him gas. I like ZHŌNGGUÓ though because in this fight that I saw, I forgot the guy's name. There's no way that I'm going to remember it right now too. He was able to dominate the clinch by changing levels to get takedowns, and off of clinch breaks, he was throwing elbows. Xiao will do this, but largely he's just going to prioritize clinch control time. I think that ZHŌNGGUÓ will be ready for a really grindy clinch affair in this fight, and I think that he will be able to utilize the Muay Thai plum to win. This is going to be a battle between you watching, and Xiao, and also you versus his own gas tank because of just the fighting style of Xiao. It's very easy to gas out while fighting this guy by not pacing yourself properly and by trying to win these positions. Sometimes you just got to accept the fact that you're going to get pushed up against the cage by a guy like this. He's actually pretty strong, but you just got to land those knees where you can and you should be okay. I will ride for my Koreans. I will die for my Koreans. And I think that grappling is going to be the safest path to victory against Xiao here. I like how down to exchange Yu is. Outside of grappling though, he could catch him on the feet and knock out Xiao. So I will favor Yu to win a decision just to be safe, but I think we're going to get a fireworks fight here in the second match. So the next fight is going to be Zhang versus Westin Wilson. This is going to be taking place at featherweight, this fight. UFC records are sometimes funny to look at because you could totally tell whenever the organization is just feeding fighters to the wolves, and whenever they're like, okay, we've gone too far, let's try to redeem him by giving him easier fights now. That's exactly what they're doing for Westin Wilson here. Westin Wilson, he has a weird skill set where he's 6'1" at featherweight, right? So he's not like crazy athletic. He can't be super explosive. He has range, which works for him. He can't effectively wrestle because he is so long and his muscles are so like spread thin across his arms and his legs. He has kickboxing, which he has developed with Ray Thompson. This is Wonder Boy's daddy. He lives in Simpsonville, South Carolina, and he trains at Wonder Boy's gym. So, I mean, that's really cool, right? But the thing about him that he specializes in is his jiu-jitsu. Once the fight gets to the ground, he has a lot of different tools to finish fights there. He has about 11 or 12 different submission wins on his record on Tapology. But he was just getting torched up by these scary Brazilian fighters like Joe Anderson Brito in his first match in the UFC, and also Gian Silva. I finally did it. Not Gian Silva. He fought both of those fighters consecutively, Brito and Silva. And they were like, oh my god, wait, we're gonna kill him. Stop. Give him Sergei to fight immediately. This is like somebody throwing on like 135 pounds after they forced you to bench press 405 in 2 different sets. And you just failed both of them. And like your arms popped off. You dislocated both of your shoulders. And your spotter was like, oh man. Yeah, let's just load up 135 pounds. And then you just smash it. That's exactly how the Sergei fight went. Sergei, he tried to bulldog Westin Wilson into the cage, and he ended up in a guillotine. The reason why this was even possible was because of the stark height advantage that Westin Wilson had over Sergei whenever he was forced into a clinch sequence. It was so easy for him to wrap up that front choke. They hit the ground, and then Sergei pops his head out of this guillotine, and then he immediately gets transitioned into, I think it was a triangle armbar. Yijia, he's easy work. He's going to be a lot shorter than Westin Wilson. He's going to come out with a similar game plan to Sergei as well. This dude, Yijia, he was 10-8'd by my boy Muscatino, Gabriel Santos, in round 1 of their fight. Gabriel Santos, he won the fight 30-26 on 2 judges' scorecards. But Santos is good, and he even beat Jack Jenkins not too long ago. I think I would consider him to be a better fighter than Westin Wilson. But Westin Wilson, he's going to have that jiu-jitsu as a great equalizer. Yijia isn't the best wrestler. He wasn't completing takedowns against Gabriel Santos. I'm kind of banking on this height difference producing a guillotine finish for Westin Wilson because Yijia is going to try to get in on those hips and wrestle. For some reason, I just see it happening immediately. He's going to close off the cage and then just try shooting. Westin Wilson will be right there with the guillotine. He's going to finish this one. Round 1 submission is what I'm going to predict for Westin Wilson. He's going to get his career back on track with 2 submission wins in the UFC over lower tier competition after getting served up by some of the better fighters in his weight class. Well, I mean, Gian Silva. We thought that Joe Anderson Brito was going to be a top dog whenever he's calling out Dan Ige, but we'll see how he bounces back. All right, so if you believe it, Michel Pereira, he's going to be fighting with Kyle Daukaus. And let's give a moment of silence for Marco Tulio here in this matchup. It really does suck that he couldn't make it out to China. Michel Pereira, he lucked out because Marco Tulio was about to kick his ass. And I was really looking forward to this breakdancing backflip guy getting broken down by the heavily damaging karate guy in a Brazilian on Brazilian matchup. Kyle Daukaus, he's the middleweight champion of the same promotion that Eric Nolan was the welterweight champion of. Cage Fury Fight Championship. Kyle Daukaus, he headbutt KO'd Kevin Holland. And then he beat up and subbed Jamie Pickett, which is a name I haven't thought of in at least 3 years since I think that he got cut after this fight too. This was in round 1 of their fight. He got to fight with Dolidze afterwards for his troubles. Dolidze beat him in round 1, and then he got brutally beaten by Eric Anders in 2022. Daukaus was cut. He won the belt at 185 in Cage Fury Fight Championship, and then he rematched Anders in grappling, and then he lost twice to Eric Anders in 2 different rule sets. But it was only by decision the second time. He's defended that Cage Fury belt 2 times since then. I've been watching his footage like on YouTube. The fights are posted on, and also Fight Pass too. I think he might actually do something since he got a call from his boys at the UFC while he's been on like a little bit of a streak. He's finished 4 of his last 3 fights and he's won all 4. This is kind of being advertised as Kyle Daukaus being cannon fodder for Michel Pereira, who's a fighter who really badly needs a bounce back after he took 2 bad losses to Anthony Hernandez and Abus Magomedov. But I'm telling you, Kyle Daukaus, he's farming these wins up in CFFC. They're not against UFC level talent because like he's fighting 5'11" middleweights and stuff, but his confidence is peaking and he's developed his striking too, and that was his big downfall in the UFC, is that he couldn't strike for as good as he was at grappling. Michel Pereira has potentially forgotten how to be the guy who was slapping, what is the dude's name? Zalim Imadaev. And the face-off, he had gotten slapped on like the weigh-ins, and then he was in the octagon slapping him after he was doing backflips and stuff. I'm not sure if Michel Pereira will ever return to that for him. For one, he's no longer a welterweight. And 2, he just has lost that fire, that dog in him. And he's even younger than Kyle Daukaus is as well. Pereira should have this one in the bag. But due to a specific set of circumstances, Daukaus is riding high. Pereira is on a skid. I'm going to pick Kyle Daukaus. Not that you need permission anyways. Feel free to flame me in the comment sections after we watch this guy get flying 720 crescent kicked by Michel Pereira. I'll go out on a limb here, sure. Kyle Daukaus via round 2 submission is going to be my pick. If this hits, I'm a genius. The next fight is Rong versus Austin Hubbard. Rong versus Cody still was one of the best fights of the year. And if my boy Rong comes back with the Goku Black Pink fade, he may actually still be very locked in and win this fight and put on another classic. The Austin Hubbard puzzle, it's pretty easy to solve. I was watching his fights with Alexander Hernandez and a little bit of his scrap with Markel Medeiros as well. All you got to do is stay disciplined and keep cool under the pressure that he provides. He's going to walk you down into the cage, but all you have to do is give Austin Hubbard something to worry about on the feet, and you completely nullify his wrestling game. Because he's not going to take any shots that don't present themselves for free. Especially if you've suffed a couple of his shots already, he's going to continue to try to wrestle, but his entries are going to become more and more telegraphed, and he's just going to fatigue because of the pressure. He's just going to be walking into you the whole time, and he's just going to be walking into the damage of Rong, because in the Alexander Hernandez fight, he was just walking into that right hand, or walking into that left cross. And at a certain point, he shot like 12 times, and all the shots were stuffed by Alexander Hernandez, and he just stopped in the 3rd round. And Rong, he's a dangerous fighter, just be walking down like that, so Hubbard may actually get sparked in this fight. Another thing, too, is that whenever Austin Hubbard does commit to these injuries, he's not looking like a very powerful grappler either, which is funny because he's always with Belal Muhammad, and he always has Belal Muhammad in his corner. In Rong last fight with Cody Steele, he stuffed 3 out of 4 takedowns that were attempted by Cody Steele, and the one takedown that was landed got reversed by Rong, and then he just got back to the striking. The home team fighter is going to get a massive W on this night. I'm picking against the American. Rong is going to win via round 2 KO. The next one is Charles Johnson, who's actually ranked number 15 after they updated the rankings. Tim Elliott is within the top 10 now. He might actually be placed at number 10. Kaya Sakura has been removed from the rankings. Now it's Charles Johnson with the number 15 spot. They totally did this on purpose as well. I've played these games before. Charles Johnson fighting a well-rounded, undefeated prospect for a ranking. This is going to be Loner Kavanagh's first real test as well, and it has the potential to get him a ranked position in the UFC. I guess he fought with Jose Ochoa, but Charles Johnson and Jose Ochoa, 2 different levels of strikers in the flyweight division. This is kind of like Ramazan Timarov versus Johnson Part 2. I just don't think that Loner is as complete as Ramazan. He may be a better striker. I would venture to say that Loner Kavanagh is probably a better striker than Ramazan Timarov. We haven't seen a lot of that guy's fighting, but the last time that Charles Johnson fought anyone, it was Ramazan, and he just got clinch spammed to death in order to lose a decision to that guy. But one thing that we can for sure count on is that, well, I mean, not for sure because we don't really know, but I have a premonition at least that Loner Kavanagh is not the same caliber of kickboxer that Joshua Van is. And look at how Joshua Van was burned up on the feet by Charles Johnson in their fight. I can nearly guarantee you that Charles Johnson does not get knocked out in this fight. And I can almost guarantee you that Charles Johnson is going to mitigate the best weapons of Loner Kavanagh in the stand-up, which are going to be the front kick, the low kick, and then the right hand. As Charles Johnson uses all of these weapons to a better degree than Loner Kavanagh does, and he was able to diffuse a striking threat like Joshua Van with him. Imagine if we have Joshua Van up at the top of the division right now, and then Loner Kavanagh is really just that guy, and he's even better than Van, and he's just coming up right after him. I don't believe it, man. I don't believe it. I need to see it in order to believe it. The way that Charles Johnson wins this fight, he's got to go first. He will punch through the feints of Kavanagh. He will be disrupting his counters by landing before Loner Kavanagh can move his head. Loner Kavanagh investing in the calf kick as well is just going to provide Charles Johnson with an opportunity to get his offense going or to counter off of the leg kick with a straight punch or even to just set up the jab. Ramazan, he clinched Charles Johnson because he understood the danger of engaging in a kickboxing match with him. Loner, he wants to prove himself like Joshua Van did in winning a stand-up battle against Charles Johnson, but I think this is going to be another undefeated prospect in the flyweight division who has to take a KO loss to a dude with a really funny haircut before he can progress any further. So that's why I am going to select Charles Johnson to win via round 3 KO. It may come earlier, but I think that this dude is getting knocked out by my boy Energy. Next we have Hayisaer Maheshate versus Gage Young at lightweight. I'm ready for this to be a trash fight. Why is this the featured prelim whenever before we had Charles Johnson versus Loner Kavanagh, which I think will be a more fireworks fight. It may be a certified barn freezer. The American, he should W here, so I guess that might be a plus. Evan Elder, he teed off on Zhang in his UFC debut after winning a contract off of the Contender Series. They're giving him a very beatable fighter from China to fight with here. But you know what? I'm not going to side with the American again. Maheshate, he KO'd Steve Garcia in 2022. That was down a weight class. Maheshate is a 155er. His power doesn't seem to translate as well at this new weight class. But for my liking, Zhang was getting beat up a little bit too much by that old man Evan Elder and by Quillen Sawkilled, even though that fight on the Contender Series earned them both contracts. He got dominated. That was a unanimous decision. His back is against the wall here, but I wouldn't say that there's a tool in his arsenal that's notable enough for me to hang my hat on him scoring a finish in this fight or even winning a convincing decision. I think it's going to be split. That's what I have written there. Maheshate, he of course was also KO'd by Vyacheslav Borjas, and that was because Borjas was able to land his cross repeatedly, and he won this fight by keeping Maheshate off of his hips and then dropping him repeatedly with overhands and straights. He had won this fight by the end of the first round because he had dropped Maheshate really badly, and Maheshate's recovery could be a lot better. It's not very good. Something in me just feels like Zhang is about to get wrestled here. Sawkilled was so easily able to get to takedowns against Zhang, even though he stuffed a good few of Evan Elder's attempts as well. Evan Elder is probably not the same level of wrestler as a Quillen Sawkilled. Maybe even not the same wrestler as a Maheshate with his old slow twitch fibers. The only thing is that Maheshate can prove to be a heavy bag against fighters with higher output than himself, but Zhang kind of displays the same quality, and that was against an old man. The last dude to beat up Maheshate was like Nicholas Mota, and Nicholas Mota is relatively dangerous in the stand-up. He goes for it, and he has good output. I think I'll ride with Maheshate here versus a guy who's known for losing interesting fights. It could be an interesting fight. I'm going to take Maheshate to win a split decision in this one, which I never predict, but on this fight I will. We're now going to be delving into the main card. If you guys know what that song is, you deserve a veteran discount at whatever stores you like to shop at. Sing it right now. I'll sing it with you. That Ming Dynasty pussy for sure got me acting unwise as well. To get us going on the main card, we have, oh my goodness, Taiyilake Nueraji. Alright, listen. Taiyilake Nueraji versus Kiefer Crosbie. I think that's right. I'm so sorry. Any Chinese Kazakh people who are watching this video right now, my bad. Kiefer Crosbie, he's a big first round finish guy, and he's the one who's getting finished in the first round by dudes, one of which who's not even UFC level. On his record, there's losses in the first round to Kevin Gisette, who's no longer with us in the promotion, and also Sam Patterson. Sam Patterson, he had beaten Danny Barlow, who's a really high prospect. So Sam Patterson, that's actually an excusable loss because Sam Patterson might actually be just cold. I don't know, man. Maybe give me the Chinese Kazakh prospect who calls himself Super Saiyan and landed one of the craziest elbow KOs on the road to UFC 2 years ago. He might even be an Uyghur, and the Uyghurs, they're kind of subject to a ethnic cleansing in China right now. So if he has the weight of that resting on his shoulders, no wonder this guy is delivering such brutal knockouts. His record is 11-1-0, and his only loss came from a liver kick in the first round, which is kind of like he's undefeated because those shots are mad fluky. I don't care what anybody says. I've been hit with him, and yeah, you like throw the kick with the intent of hurting people, but most of the time you're landing on the right side of the body with your kicks, and it's such a small percentage of the time where you're actually hitting something that's important and like shuts people down. These switch stance fighters, right? An orthodox fighting a southpaw, and the southpaw throws the rear kick with his left leg. How many times have you seen that strike connect on the orthodox fighter and they just tank it? And then that like small percentage, they actually like show reaction and they drop their elbows and they start moving backwards. Whenever I see that, I'm like, oh, bullshit. But I know that, I mean, it's definitely calculated. It's not just like luck every time at least. But let's talk about this rear elbow that he landed on the road to UFC from 2023. He sent this guy to the 7th layer of hair, like the bottom floor of the shadow realm with this elbow, an open range. Just stepped into it, just threw a rear elbow. This guy that he fought, he completely lost consciousness, and it was one of those knockouts where the body doesn't drop like down. They like plank up and they fall forward. So you just face planted. It was beautiful. I recommend go watching the clip. Nueraji, he's 6'2" with a 77-inch reach to cap things off. That's like a 6'5" reach. This dude is built crazy for welterweight. The matchmakers are trying to give China a proper prospect by letting him drop a nuke in a bot lobby. Crosbie has a 2-fight history of getting beaten up, taken down, and choked. That's how both of these people have won against him, Gisette and also Patterson. I'd like to see another highlight reel KO like that elbow that landed for Nueraji, finish this fight against Crosbie. Him with the 10-5 record, he's going to be the perfect donor to get slumped out. I'm going to go for a Nueraji round 1 KO in this fight. The next fight is going to be Sumudaerji versus Kevin Borjas. I think that El Gallo Negro, the Black Rooster, I think that translates to in Spanish. He's going to solo here. Borjas, he's fought with Joshua Van and he lasted to a decision, which was more than a lot of the people that he fought in the early going of his UFC career could say. He unfortunately got TKO'd by leg kicks, and that was in his fight against Alessandro Costa. He got leg kick I mean, he didn't get leg kick TKO'd, but those were the shots that began the finishing sequence. He got dropped by the leg kicks, and then he got smashed in half guard. I still don't like that Matt Schnell loss for Sumudaerji that he suffered in 2022. Since then, he got choked by Tim Elliott, and that was Tim Elliott's most recent fight before he fought last weekend. He's also been sunned by Charles Johnson in a 3-round decision loss in October of last year. He beat Mitch Raposo, and that was a really boring fight. Mitch Raposo just tried to wrestle him the whole time. He's been fighting with a bunch of grapplers. Kevin Borjas, he just fought with a grappler, and Ronaldo Rodriguez, and he kind of beat him up, and that was pretty cool. I think that's a better win than the Mitch Raposo fight that I had seen, because I was comparing both of the footage. One thing that I do like about Sumudaerji, though, is that he has good low kick offense, and he's very good at controlling the center of the octagon. But you can run circles around him because it's like there's like a chain around his neck, and it's like dug into the center of the cage. There's like a certain point of the octagon that he just doesn't pass. Even if he's hurt you, he doesn't really pressure into the corners of the octagon. He just maintains the center. Borjas, he prefers to stay on the outside anyway, so I think he's just going to pick at the bones of Sumudaerji for as long as it takes for him to win this fight. Maybe he finishes it. I'm going to go with the decision. Sumudaerji may come out and be more aggressive than he's shown to be in previous fights, but he's just going to be walking right into the right hand of Kevin Borjas, which proved to be a weapon that was effective enough to send Ronaldo Rodriguez up a weight class. Since he's no longer a flyweight, he's a bantamweight. Sumudaerji, he's not Joshua Van. He's not Alessandro Costa. Borjas is going to be free to dump jabs and low kicks off on Sumudaerji all night, and he'll score a decision this way for sure. So I'm going to select Borjas to win via decision. All right, now we're on to the interesting fight. Sergei Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortes-Acosta. And this is going to be taking place at heavyweight. Sergei Pavlovich is number 3 ranked in the division. Waldo Cortes-Acosta is ranked number 6. I said this before in a fight where I was like breaking down this matchup months ago, maybe 2 months ago. I'm not sure how long it was. I just remember saying, I think it's going to surprise us who Waldo Cortes-Acosta beats in this division whenever we don't see it going like that. And I still stand on that. Pavlovich, he lost to Aspinall. He took some time off for injuries that he needed to address, and then he came back a shell of his past self. He lost to Volkov, and he just got decisioned by Volkov, and it was honestly a pretty uneventful fight for a guy with as heavy hands as we thought that Sergei Pavlovich had. You're supposed to come on boom on these guys, dude. Derek Lewis was able to knock out Volkov. It was the outdated game of Volkov, and he's definitely made some revisions, but I mean, it's just really output that he's raised. We thought that Sergei Pavlovich was something like Ngannou back in the day, and most recently he was given Jairzinho Rosenstruck, and Jairzinho was paralyzed with fear in this fight of getting chinned by Sergei Pavlovich, and so he just kind of laid in wait for it to happen. If you would have just pressed him up against the cage like Ngannou had it in the COVID cards, he could have knocked him out super easily. All Sergei had to do was go for it, but he froze just like Rosenstruck did, and he even ended up just wrestling at certain periods of this fight, which it's like, what are you doing? Sergei Pavlovich, you're supposed to be the scary knockout guy, not the decision guy. He was meant to turn Jairzinho Rosenstruck into a bowl of steel-cut oats, and he didn't do that. Acosta, he looks pretty unbeatable in my opinion, and he has so much momentum, and he has beaten many different types of heavyweights. He's beaten prospects, he's beaten grapplers, he's beaten ex-205ers. The only thing that he hasn't done is beaten a robust power puncher, and it doesn't seem like that's the game of Pavlovich anymore. Pavlovich, he kind of fights like Ryan Spann did at 205. He has power, but he doesn't use it. He can wrestle, but he does it at weird times. He has a funky chin. Cortes-Acosta is going to be in there fighting with a guy who doesn't even do the things that he specializes in better than he does them. The jab, the low kick, the wrestling. He's probably better at all these things than Sergei Pavlovich. It's just Sergei Pavlovich has some name value, so people are going to glaze. I think Waldo Cortes-Acosta is going to stop Sergei Pavlovich. I think he'll do it in round 1, too. I'm going to predict the decision just to be safe, but bro, don't rule this out. The reason why I think that he could get this done in round 1 is because Sergei Pavlovich is going to be trying to hit this walk down to redeem himself and to prove that he is this big, scary heavyweight, but he's just not that guy. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. So yeah, Cortes-Acosta via decision, but really like Cortes-Acosta round 1 knockout, bro. Next we have a featherweight scrap, Brian Ortega at number 5 ranked, and then Aljamain Sterling at number 7. It's an Ortega fight week, so that means that he's either getting an epic W or he's being beaten to a quarter inch of his life. Part of me thinks that Brian Ortega wins this because he's going to be too large for Aljo to control, and he's a more powerful striker than Aljamain Sterling. We've seen a lot more striking clips of Brian Ortega being successful in the stand-up. We've seen him get beat up a lot more at featherweight too. But I mean, for all the times he's been beat up, he's never gotten flatlined, like colded, like Aljamain Sterling has down a weight class at bantamweight. And that could be dehydration, but Brian Ortega at 145, he's one of the most durable fighters in this division. I can't see Aljamain Sterling putting on a Lopez, Volkanovski, or Holloway level beating on a Brian Ortega. And you really got to put it on that guy or else he's going to beat you. And even historically, good grapplers like Renato Moicano were able to get really far ahead into a fight and then still lose because of the heart that Brian Ortega possesses. He also randomly pops out with a striking masterclass like he did against the Korean Zombie. And I think it's been enough time for him to do something like that again. That's why I'm thinking that he probably knocks out Aljamain Sterling. Aljo's a great wrestler, but he's a bantamweight. He may get the takedowns, but he's always going to have issues controlling a true featherweight on the floor. We saw this in the Movsar-Evloev fight. Movsar may have just been a better wrestler than him, but am I wrong for grouping Brian Ortega in the same level of grappling prowess as Movsar-Evloev on the basis of his jiu-jitsu acumen? Brian Ortega, he's dangerous from all positions, and he can finish a fight in any grappling sequence. We saw this in the Volkanovski fight. I mean, maybe his bald head was just sweaty, and that's the reason why he was able to get out of those chokes, but they were deep, man. I don't think that Aljamain Sterling is escaping those grips. And then going back to the durability as well, I don't think that Aljamain Sterling is going to be able to finish this guy, no matter how down bad he gets him onto the ground. And I don't think he's going to be able to subdue him to a point where he's just like teeing off on him and just doing a bunch of damage. The survivability of Brian Ortega and the knowledge of positions, I think, is going to guarantee him at least a decision win. If Aljamain Sterling does get sparked up like I'm thinking, though, he should retire. Don't sleep on a spinning elbow finish, because do you remember the Brian Ortega spinning elbow that he landed on TKZ? That shot that Chang Sung Jung took would have knocked out anybody else who didn't have his chin in the division, which is like nobody. Definitely not an ex-bantamweight. So I'm going to go with Brian Ortega winning via round 2 TKO in this one. That's going to take us on to the top of the card. The main event will be a light heavyweight fight. Johnny Walker at number 13 versus Zhang Mingyang at number 14. Mingyang Zhang, this is a guy who gets hit a lot. Johnny Walker can totally win this fight if he just boxes. The thing about Walker, though, is that he's very silly and he uses strange techniques like axe kicks and hook kicks that help his opponent settle into the fight and find the perfect range to drop him off. Like, for all these flashy techniques that he always uses to start out his fights, they never are effective. They always miss. If Walker can just stop being a dunderhead and he can go first and apply pressure with his hands, we can get a big KO. Walker should just chalk this entire division and go up to heavyweight if he gets knocked out again. I have no confidence in Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker, Luke Belmar sipping Johnny Walker with Tristan Tate in the war room. I have no faith in Johnny Walker after watching him get colded by a 19-year-old. This 19-year-old was a 5'11", 168-pound boxer, and they were sparring, and Johnny Walker got flatlined in training. Zhang, he definitely has this one in the bag, and he's already calling out Yuri Prohashka for a fight after he sleeps Walker. It's already done. But Zhang is a guy who does kind of get beat up in his fights, though, and he took a fair bit of damage off of Tuco Tokos, Ozzy Diaz, Brinson Ribeiro, and even Anthony Smith before he finished all of them. Zhang puts himself into harm's way for his finishes, but he just doesn't care, and that's his superpower, having a really good chin and bombs in his hands. There's no question in my mind as to whether or not Zhang will possess the power to KO Walker, and there's also no question in my mind either as to whether or not his footwork is going to be good enough to close off the cage to set up the shot. He'll just stand right in front of Johnny Walker and eat like 4 punches if he needs to. But if Jamal Hill was able to use his 2 left feet to deliver an overhand to finish this fight, I think that Zhang Mingyang is going to be okay. Johnny Walker, he could get starched by standing up from a sitting position too fast. If Johnny Walker was Isaac Newton, the Honeycrisp apple that fell on his head would have slumped him for 8 whole minutes. Johnny Walker gets KO'd remembering the good times that he's had in the past. Johnny Walker, he gets KO'd by sneezing during the allergy season. Johnny Walker can get flatline KO'd by putting on a beanie before going out in the cold. Johnny Walker gets KO'd by eating spicy food. Zhang Mingyang is going to win this fight via round 1 KO. So let's go over the predictions recap. We got my boy Rong with the pink hair. That's Goku Black under me. They're pretty much the same person. I have Sadi. These are going to be all my picks. I'm not going to read them all out. I got to go to bed. Look, the sun is coming up, dude. There's no more night. It's literally like 6:12 a.m., dude. This is my life now. I'm gonna go live. We're gonna watch the Road to UFC event together. Whoever's gonna be awake. It's just gonna be me and all the fellas from the UK. I already know it. But yeah, whoever's gonna be there, I'll make an announcement. I'm not sure. Like, I gotta edit this still. I'm not gonna go to bed until like 8 o'clock. It's crazy. I'm playing on X Games mode right now, but only the strong survive, right? I have a goal. I'm going to reach my goal. So thank you guys for sticking around. I'm gonna keep the outro brief this time. I love you so much. If you are new here, thank you for making it to this point in the video. Please do like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you fellas in the next one. It's gonna be a stream, so get ready.